Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. The Grant. My name is Niels Winter, and I am the creator, editor, and host of The Grant. The Grant is an independent, non-commercial podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. The Horizon Europe Framework Programme for R&D funding is a bush with many flowers. I have throughout the last year built up content on especially Horizon Europe Pillar 2, which is focused on collaboration projects solving socio-economic challenges. Now it is time to have a look at one of the other flowers in the bush, the ERC program for researchers. The program is the most important funding program for the research community, broadly speaking. It has a quite different structure and characteristic than the Pillar 2 part of Horizon Europe. The focus here is to support the individual researchers with the in-depth investigation of the research area, giving them the resources that all researchers per se is needing to go ever further into unveiling yet unknown revelations to advance European research in all corners. Added to this, the ERC is a bottom-up program with no strategic calls. I have never worked with this funding scheme, so to get it right, I invited in Yoram Bar-Zeev into the virtual podcast studio to give us all a thorough introduction to this fundamental funding source for the European research community. It's solid. Please enjoy. The Grant. Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. I start to cover quite some areas here, and regulars will know that suddenly Erasmus Plus has popped up. Suddenly there are episodes that dig into Erasmus projects in between my timeline ending and so on. But that's the whole deal about this initiative that I'm kicking off. That I want to cover EU R&D funding, and that is a big animal. It has many different colors, it has many different corners, but the idea is that in some time you will be able to go in to the Grant website and find information about all the major funding programs. Now, the reason why I am giving you this fly into this program is today we are going to have another introduction to another funding program that I haven't touched upon yet. And I'm so lucky that I have a very strong specialist on exactly this. And he's been in here before. And before I continue too far, just Yoram, thank you so much for coming in again. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I love the last episode we did, so it's good. I know it's going to be a pleasure to do this one also. Before we do anything else, because we don't know if anybody of the listeners has heard the last episode. So
my name is Yoram Bar-Zeev. I'm working with Inspire Science. It's a project management and consultancy firm from Tel Aviv in Israel. Personally, I've been working on EU-funded research projects, for about 25 years by now. And the focus of discussion today is the ERC, which is a grant that actually started in 2007, and I've been working with my team on that since then. And so basically, I have this kind of a very wide background and spectrum of EU research funding, and specifically on the ERC.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, and that's also why you're here today. Is there anything? You gave a nice introduction now, but is there anything specifically you want to mention about your capacities, like your core capacities over the many years you've been working, specialization? Is that the ERC?
except for the ERC, or
no? Is the ERC your core capacity?
No, it's on top of the regular collaborative projects and other funding schemes under the program. But we do have this unique expertise and capacity with the ERC, which I will try to elaborate more today about that. We have a team of specialists in different scientific domains. ERC it's a highly scientific and highly competitive grant. So therefore, you must have a very good understanding of the science when working on these grants. So part of our capacity here is this ability to have a deep dive into the actual science behind the applications.
As far as I remember, and you can because you get the chance to do that now on Inspire Science, your company, but you have specialized with the research world, right?
Correct.
So can you, as everybody always gets a chance for shameless self-promotion of the company or organization they're working for, so Inspire Science, Yoram?
About Inspire Science, so our focus is on helping applicants to apply and later on sometimes to manage their projects. We provide a spectrum of services, starting with the pre-award services, which are mainly around training applicants first to how to apply to specific grants. And then we have a complementary consulting, which is an individual service for applicants, helping them to, let's say, better craft and articulate their grant applications when submitting them. And to some extent, in some of the grants, we can also provide the post-award services about project management of these grants, although for the ERC it's less relevant, but with other grants it can be relevant. And basically our team consists of experts in the various domains, and including of course the technical aspects, including financial aspects and administrative aspects of these grants. So basically we give this kind of comprehensive set of services for applicants and awardees of these grants.
And what I know from my background as in consultancy, we had a section in P&O that worked, for instance, with the health area. That's quite specific. It's very research heavy sector. And they work specifically also with ERC, with some of these very and it's a different approach than when you do Horizon Europe Pillar 2 proposals. It's a very different approach you have to your clients. It's a very different approach to how you help them and what you help them with. So it's my impression from that is that what consultants like you and your company is doing, it's very specialized.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. And in the context of the ERC, because of the focus on the science, our ERC team consists on people that have this kind of scientific background in the three main areas, which are the natural division of areas. We have the exact sciences, the natural sciences, and then we have the life sciences team, and then the social sciences and humanities. And definitely it's kind of unique expertise with this field. Clearly, we cannot cover all scientific domains.
Of course.
But our team is already well trained and experienced to know how to approach all main areas, and then all kinds of let's say sub areas or specific niche here and there. And we definitely developed a rather elaborated capabilities of how to approach scientific projects in these areas, even if we don't have the exact background in our personnel.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. But indeed, it's not something for generalists like me. It would not be something that you need to have a knowledge about the research world. You need to have an understanding of at least overlapping areas with what you need to work with, how the research world functions with those things. Now, Thanks. Let's get at it, Yoram.
Sure.
So we will make the authoritative, the grand introduction to the ERC today. Yeah?
Yes, that's our goal. And basically, I would like to give some kind of, let's say, a beginner's overlook into the ERC.
Yeah.
And shall we begin?
Yeah. And just like last time, you made the rundown for me. So I love it. You're a very nice guest to work with. So
welcome.
Yeah, no, it's good. And they're also simple, my rundowns, right? It's not the rocket science here, so it's it's just an extended agenda, so to say. So you want us to kick off with looking at the ERC mission statement?
Yes, because we need to understand the grant. It's very important. You need to understand this grant, and ERC is a very unique grant in the overall landscape of EU funding, and in general, by the way, compared also to grants that we know from the United States, from Japan, or from Israel. So let's start with the mission statement. And for that, I'm simply going to read a quote. It's an official quote from the official documentation about the mission statement.
Mm-hmm.
And let's read it and then try to analyze and dive deeper into that. So the ERC's mission is to encourage the highest quality research in Europe through competitive funding and to support investigator-driven frontier research across all fields on the basis of scientific excellence.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the quote. And there are some highlights here in this quote, which I want already to refer to.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is the issue of investigator-driven. The investigator, the principal investigator, the PI, should be at the center of this grant application, meaning the grant is about what the PI has done so far, and of course what the PI is going to do in the grant. And in that sense, the ERC is a very personal grant. We'll see later on more about it, but we need to keep this in mind. And in that sense, I would just want to mention a minor technical aspect, which it's a technical thing, but it attests to the nature of the ERC, and that's why it's important. Mm-hmm. The ERC is a mobile grant in the sense that once a PI is being awarded with an ERC grant under a specific host, under a specific university, the PI can at any time move from this university to another university with the grant.
Mm-hmm.
The grant goes with the PI because it's completely linked to the PI.
I'm gonna let you explain the abbreviation.
The principal investigator.
There you go. Because I know that it goes up, but when I saw it first time, sure. I was like, what's this? So I had to investigate myself, and people who haven't heard it before will definitely say, what's he talking about? Well, that's the person, individual here. That
I'm so used to the terminology, so it's for me easy. But the ERC, to some extent, very limited extent, is influenced by American grants. But it's very different from those American grants. But the terminology
mm-hmm.
comes from there. It's American terminology for the PI.
Okay.
But let's go back to the issue.
Sorry.
Yep. Just keep in mind it's about the PI, meaning the PI is in the center here,
mm-hmm.
and the fact that you can move with the grant from one institution to another, and the institutions cannot say anything about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's only a kind of a way of demonstrating the importance of that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Another highlight is the frontier research.
Yep.
Meaning they definitely look for significant major breakthroughs, and we will discuss this in more details soon.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's across all fields, meaning it's bottom up, meaning anything goes, anything in research and science can be subject to this grant,
mm-hmm.
which is fine.
Yep.
And then we are reaching the end of this quote, which says it's on the basis of scientific excellence.
Yeah.
Now, if you read carefully the full documentation of the ERC, try to figure out what scientific excellence is exactly, you won't find an answer.
Mm-hmm.
There is no answer to this. And scientific excellence, which is the sole evaluation criteria of the ERC, is, at the end of the day, it's kind of an elusive thing. How do you measure excellence or scientific excellence? So we look a bit into that more later on, but just keep this in mind. That's part of the mission statement.
Mm-hmm.
Now, throughout the years, there were a lot of issues around this and a lot of claims suggesting that the ERC did not clarify enough what is this scientific excellence. And indeed, there aren't too many clarifications to that. However, we do find from throughout the years some hints.
Mm-hmm.
And one recent hint from October 2022 was in a speech of Professor Maria Laptin, who is currently the current president of the ERC, and she said the following quote: "The reviewers are given very clear guidelines, and those are to look for something creative,
Mm-hmm.
innovative,
Mm-hmm.
and original.
Uh-huh.
We don't want something obvious. We want something that goes beyond."
Mm-hmm.
So we need to keep this in mind. It's a very good hint, complementary to what we know already about the ERC. And since we have a lot of hands-on experience since 2007, we've seen thousands of applications so far and hundreds of awardees, we know basically how to approach that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's about the mission statement.
Yeah. That sort of sets the scene, right? It's 3 lines, quite heavy.
Yes, quite heavy, and I will try to break it down a bit.
Yeah,
we can't go the full extent today, but I will definitely try to give you, let's say, the initial steps into this grant.
Mm.
So
let's move on to your next bullet in our rundown here: a counterintuitive grant.
It's
Explain.
We'll have the counterintuitive grant and the elusive evaluation criteria together.
Yeah.
Because that's basically, let's say, that's the framework. We know a lot of grants, a lot of European grants and other grants, and pretty much in all other grants, you get a set of instructions. You get technical instructions, and you get information about the structure of the proposal, and you get usually kind of a glimpse into the evaluation criteria, better understanding what they are looking for. In ERC, it's not like that, meaning there are technical aspects which I'm going to discuss soon, but the technical stuff is actually rather simple. Very simple to follow, nothing complex over there, and it's actually rather minimal at the end of the day compared to other things. But when you look at the proposal itself, and try to figure out what do they expect, you're pretty much looking at a white canvas, without instructions and without deciphering for you what is this scientific excellence. Mm-hmm. So the overall thing about that we need to keep in mind is that on one hand, it's elusive, meaning you don't know how they're going to evaluate it. That's one very important factor. And out of experience, we know that some of the factors, which I'm going to discuss soon, are actually counterintuitive, meaning you are used to write applications in one way. Mm-hmm. In many other grants, you are used to write, just for example, we are used to write grants which are, let's say, demonstrate high feasibility. We provide a contingency plan for this for the supposed risks. And in general, we're trying to reduce or eliminate risks, because that's what is the expectation. The expectation is that you deliver at some point.
Yeah.
But ERC is not like that. ERC is looking for high risk, high gain projects. And this is a term that I'm going to repeat later on as well. It's kind of a major factor in the ERC, the high risk, high gain. Feasibility is expected, but only to some extent. But still, the risk is more important. And the high risk is even more. A lot of ERC applications are actually failing about the risk factor. So how to approach that? Another common common issue is, for example, the expectation for a non-incremental research.
Yeah.
So that's again a counterintuitive thing, because the regular, common education of any researcher is actually to progress in incremental steps. So what is it exactly?
Does that mean, does this would also mean that you don't have the impact regime of Horizon Europe Pillar 2, for instance?
What do you mean by impact?
The whole impact regime
section,
with making list of where you will what parts of the results will impact what in how many this and this and this way and so on.
No, the impact in ERC is the high gain, expected high gain. It's all about science. The gain should be only scientific.
Okay.
I will discuss it later on.
Yeah.
I will try to touch this, but let's try to touch upon some technical stuff before we are getting into the counterintuitive and elusive evaluation criteria.
Yeah.
Just to get, let's make it more tangible.
Yeah, exactly.
Before we are going beyond.
Yeah. So let's set the frame. So the funding scheme presentation. So say the characteristic of the funding scheme. So the principle of the calls. Well, we just mentioned that. Yeah, they're non-thematic, they're non-strategic, they are open.
Right. So we covered already what ERC is all about. I just remember it's just recall this. It's a bottom-up, any field of research, no predetermined priorities like in other areas, of course. And then we have the frontier research, the high risk and high gain. Keep in mind these terms. The issue that's personal grant, of course, and that we have this evaluation system, which is it's a panel review system. It has three main scientific domains: the physical science and engineering, the life sciences, and social sciences and humanities. That's about, we can discuss it later on more details about this evaluation system. But basically, you apply to specific main domain and then to specific subdomains within these main domains. There is a mechanism to that, which I don't want to touch now.
Yeah.
And then we need to ask ourselves who can and should apply to ERC. And in that sense, we need to keep in mind what we refer to as the ERC material, meaning what type of researchers can apply and should apply to the ERC. So we are talking about PIs, these principal investigators, who can demonstrate the groundbreaking nature, ambition, and feasibility of their scientific proposal. That's that to begin with. They should also demonstrate creativity, and they should be independent PIs. It's very important that they are independent. No gender, age, nationality, or institution bias is allowed in ERC, meaning any researcher, regardless of their gender, age, nationality, or institution, are welcome here. It's very important to remember that. But the common thing that we need to remember, they must have a research-oriented career. And this is very important.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we know that ERC is not for everybody. So you definitely must be a researcher coming from a research institution. And your career should be research oriented. And I'm mentioning this because we know about some specific, let's say, exceptions here. The first type of exceptions are researchers that their background is more from the industry or teaching. And they simply are going to have less competitive profile when applying to the ERC.
Mm-hmm.
Because the ERC is about scientific merits. So we need to have that. Do you want to ask anything?
What I was thinking, now you mentioned the sort of the kind of target group, right? But what I would just in this short sort of setting the scene, you have the structure of the program, for instance, you have these 4 main grant schemes, right?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay, then maybe I don't know, funding rate is that.
I'm getting there.
Okay, I'm sorry. Then I don't have any questions.
Okay. So I just want to highlight the exceptions. So the first group is the ones coming from industry or teaching.
Yeah.
And the other one is those that we refer to as applicative thinkers. And these are typically the clinicians on one hand or the engineers on the other hand. Because these type of researchers usually present projects that are trying to solve a very specific problem, and that's it. Meaning, it is an applicative research. Now, it can work in ERC, but since ERC is looking for a very wide and open scientific impact, many times they have problems when presenting their project. So we just need to keep in mind that they can apply here, but they may have, let's say, a bigger challenge getting the grants with the ERC. Now, as for when, so definitely there are categories, and we'll discuss the categories in a second, but basically you should keep in mind that there is one deadline per category per year for the ERC. As for the funding rate, it's 100% for all categories. And let's discuss the categories.
Just a second.
Sure.
The frequency, that was quick. So you say how often you have one deadline per category or what?
Per year.
Okay.
Correct.
And is there any logic? Do they fall spring, summer, or
yes.
so?
Yes. There is a regular scheme. Mm-hmm. So there are 4 ERC grants, 4 categories. 3 of them are individual categories. We have the starting grant. We'll discuss the differences in a second, but we have the starting grant. We have the consolidator grant and the advanced grant. Each one of them is an individual scheme, meaning for a single PI. And then we have the synergy grant, which is for a combination of 2 up to 4 PIs. That's the 4th one. There is an additional category, which is the proof of concept, but the proof of concept, it's kind of a tailing grant, which only researchers with an active ERC grant can apply to. So I'm not going to discuss this at all today.
Okay.
The proof of concept.
Okay.
But we are focusing mainly on the 3 individual grants, the starting grant, consolidated grant, and the advanced grant.
Good.
And for these, we have eligibility window, which is it's important to understand. It's a technical thing. For the starting grant, which is kind of the early stage grant, people, only researchers with research diploma, usually it's the PhD, can apply to only when they are over 2 years after getting their diploma, but not more than 7 years after getting the diploma, meaning the eligibility window is 2 up to 7 years from getting the diploma. That's the starting grant. Consolidated grant, which is the next step, is 7 years up to 12 years after getting the diploma. That's the eligibility window.
Yeah.
Then the advanced grant is basically all those that are beyond that.
Professors.
Yes. That's basically it. Mm-hmm. As for the size of the grant, for the starting grant, we are talking about 1.5 million euros for all of the grant, by the way, is for 5 years, except for the synergy, which is for 6 years. Mm-hmm. So the starting grant is 1.5 million euros. Consolidated grant is 2 million euros. And the advanced grant is 2.5 million euros. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, for each one of these categories, you can ask for an additional grant, additional budget of 1 million euros, but only for very specific items. There are 4 specific items. The first one is a justified purchase of major equipment. And when I'm talking about major equipment, large, expensive equipment, we're not talking about small pieces. Or, by the way, you can have a combination. Access to large-scale research infrastructures or facilities.
Yeah.
And then, what we refer to as startup costs. It's typically when you have costs of moving from one institution to another, and you need to, let's say, start a new lab.
Yeah.
So you can get the grant for that here, or this extra 1 million euros.
Okay. Yeah.
Or major experimental and fieldwork costs.
Okay. I think is that sort of you as an expert? Is that what you would say? So this is the technical stuff. This is the baseline you need to know.
Yes, there are more to it because there are more technical aspects, but we can stop at this point because it can be too detailed.
It's I think the most important thing is for people to get an idea. Yeah? If you're a researcher sitting out in a university and think, what's the ERC? You maybe been applying for national grants successfully over some years, but you think you want to up your game a little bit. And so this should give an idea, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that has nothing to do with collaborative projects, right? It's one researcher that gets to do a work to dig into a specific thing that the commission said this is exactly what we would the barriers the barriers that we want to be moved. Now, I just want to ask you a question before we move on as a sort of zoom a little bit out. Do you think, with your knowledge of the research world and the needs, so to say, of a research team, is this framework that has been set up, does it answer to that?
To what? To the needs?
To the needs of a researcher wanting to roll out. Yeah?
The beauty of the ERC is that they open the door for anything. Meaning, once you qualify, of course, you have illustrated a specific project, specific thing that you want to do, and potentially you're going to do that. But you have full academic freedom. And you have the freedom to change and adapt. And keep in mind, I said high risk, high gain projects. So by definition, they understand that the high risk research means that you are definitely going into uncharted waters, meaning that you can't fully plan what's going to happen. And you may divert on the way because that's the nature of things. And you may change things. And basically, once you get the grant, unlike the regular grants where they are going to monitor everything you do and see that you're working according to the plan, here in the ERC, they are not. They're going to let you do whatever you want. Just to give kind of, there is an urban myth to give you the perspective of that. saying that the ERC is kind of an offspring of a process that started in a discussion of several Nobel laureates back many years back, that said that there is no grant in Europe that can actually build up the future Nobel laureates. Because you need to give them full freedom to research.
Yeah.
So,
see, that's nice. That's very nice.
That's how it's built.
And actually, because many people, also my guests, they are they're hammering on the commission in all different corners, of things that people are unsatisfied with. But I always say, look, I also have my things, where I say, come on, you should do this better. But if you zoom out and look at what the commission is actually doing, also historically what they have been trying to do and what they're still doing, they really make an effort to actually wanting to support the things properly, so to say, in the different corners. Here, research, other places, SMEs, other places, industry, and so on and so forth. So I didn't know this, so thanks. That's a very nice anecdote because it frames very nicely why the EU is such an important institution.
Correct. I agree. Totally agree in that sense. So if I can answer, refer back to your question, I can tell you out of experience, we've seen a lot of applicants that got a grant, and plenty of good things came out of that. And actually, the ERC is monitoring this in the sense of what is the scientific production of that. And they are checking how many new publications, how many new citations, how many new patents, how many researchers got prestigious prizes, starting with the Nobel Prizes. And I think that by now they have 12 Nobel laureates with ERC grants. Yes,
that's nice.
And more with other prizes. So definitely, it's kind of proving itself. I also got some feedback at some. I don't remember which conference was it, but Americans started to look into that. And it's very interesting to see that that American agencies are looking at the production of ERC, the scientific production of ERC.
Because the American research has always been very strong. Yeah.
Right. But such complete freedom is something which also they do not really have.
I have no knowledge of the American funding landscape, but if you say so.
Working with some American agencies as well, and although they have open grants, it's still not as free as this one. It's the ERC is free to the extent that you can actually get the grant and do something which is completely different. Now, I'm not recommending that, of course, because I still think that people are going to look into that, reputation issues, things like that. But that's the essence of what you can do with this grant.
Is that just a degradational question? Is there a specific connection between Israeli and American research communities because of the connection there's been between the countries politically?
Actually, is there one of the strongest links between Israel and the United States is the scientific community links. Is this array of links, and actually a lot of let's say the regular or normal pathway of a scientific researcher is to go from the Israeli education, academic education, into the American one and going back into Israel later on.
So did you shape the educational structure, so to say, of the system, so you can easily calibrate to the American university level and stuff like this?
I wouldn't say it's shaped intentionally like that, but this is how it actually working.
In reality,
A lot of Israeli researchers and professors were educated in the United States. some point.
Yeah, and if you look at it from a sort of more like social or human point of view, you have there's strong links because a lot of Jews and Israelis are living in America.
That's correct.
So there's a big community there. So it's of course there's an exchange also on a personal level.
That's correct. Although this is not, let's say, that's not a main factor. A main factor is the academic links, and they go back many years. So, there is a tradition there.
No, that's just. I'm a historian, I have an interest in these kind of things. Cool. So sorry, guys out there, but I had no.
Yes.
Yoram, let's move on to. So now we cover the technical stuff. So, but you have a lot of knowledge about these things. So let's open up a little bit. So here, your next bullet here say who is ERC material. But did you cover that or do?
I only started with that, but I would try to make it brief because, yes, we have a lot to say about that. Again, it's all based on our hands-on experience with this grant. So I will go through this briefly to explain what is the expected profile of applicants.
Yeah, that should be very interesting for the dear listeners that has an interest in this. So please enlighten us.
So there are several factors which actually some of them are technical, and we definitely know that the evaluators must evaluate these and provide their feedback about these aspects, about let's say the CV on one hand and the track record on the other hand of the applicants. So first let's say group of factors is being creative thinkers, being able to demonstrate non-incremental track record and able to create paradigm shifts, meaning that the PIs applying to the ERC should demonstrate that they were already excellent researchers before, coming up with creative thinking, and they did something great before. It should appear in their track record. It should be demonstrated via their publications, number of citations, maybe appearance in conferences, maybe patents, things like that.
The normal sort of KPIs, so to say, of a researcher, right?
Correct.
So,
correct.
Yeah.
But definitely, they should demonstrate it. And then we have the classic scientific production competitiveness. Basically, it's the publication record, meaning how many publications, where they have published, how many citations. And in that sense, we need to keep in mind the following. There is kind of an urban myth that goes back to, let's say, 2007 when they started the ERC, saying that if you don't have at least one publication in Nature magazine or Science magazine, don't even consider applying to the ERC. That's the urban myth. It's incorrect. I just want to make sure it's clear. Definitely, you can apply and get an ERC grant without these kind of publications. But you do need to present a highly competitive profile and track record of your publications. And in that sense, we need to keep in mind the evaluation system, which is going to evaluate each application according to the scientific area of the applicant, meaning they are picking the evaluators according to the profile of the PI and the nature of the PI's application. It means that unlike other grants where they're going to recruit, let's say, a group of evaluators and hand them over, let's say, a list of applications to evaluate, in ERC, it's quite a common scenario where they will pick one evaluator to evaluate a specific application, meaning one-on-one, and that's it. Meaning, it is possible that they can evaluate more, but it is, on the other hand, quite common that it's going to be one-on-one because they want it to be evaluated by a specific expert in the field. And this specific expert should be knowledgeable about what is expected in terms of publication record, meaning what are the common magazines, what is the impact of these publications, maybe even to the extent of understanding or knowing the PI, not too close, because then you will have a conflict of interest. But I heard about the work of this PI. You see, so in that sense, you do need to have something very highly competitive.
Yeah, it's when it's like this, then indeed you need to be there at the top tier, so to say, to be considered. How do you know how many proposals do they receive per call round?
Yeah, it's somewhere between, let's say, it's in the area of 2,500 up to, let's say, close to 3,000 in each round.
Yeah, it's because it's individuals, and there's only that for all of Europe under the one of the 3-4 categories.
I will give you more stats, because if you talked about the evaluators, just to get a sense that each one of these proposals is being evaluated by a number of evaluators, where we used to see, let's say, those that fail, meaning those that do not get the grant, we see somewhere around 7 to, let's say, 9 or 10 evaluators. But for those who got the grant, the numbers go to somewhere between, let's say, 10 to 15, sometimes even more. But it's a lot of reviewers for a single application.
You need to explain that. So how does that work? So do they send them? Do they receive it simultaneously, or how does that work?
For that, we need to fully introduce the evaluation system.
Sorry.
But basically, an evaluation system is based on 2 rounds. The first round evaluation is done only by the review panel members, only a select group of them, 3 or 4, not more than that. The panels are usually something between 10 to 20 members. So for each application, they are allocating in the first round, they review only to 3 or 4. But then once these 3 or 4 panel members decide to pass the application to the second evaluation phase, then they are calling in external experts. And they start with the first set of experts, and it would be 3, 4, 5, depends on the application, depends on the experts that they find. And they're going to look for experts anywhere in the world, by the way. It's not limited to Europe. They do bring experts from anywhere in the world. And by the way, not only from the academia, also from the industry. And then what I know from experience is that in case it's not a clear cut, they are going to call in for more. Meaning, if you get a larger number of reviewers, it means that there was more debate.
Okay.
And
sorry for disrupting our. But I was just. It's a curiosity also, because it's not a screen that I know anything about practically. So it's very nice. No. So please. Still under the Who is ERC material.
Correct. And here are a few more elements to consider. International visibility, highly important, meaning you need to be a PI, a researcher, which is recognized internationally. And the way to demonstrate it is usually by showing how many invited talks you have, and in which networks you are a member, and what sort of international collaboration you have, all sorts of things like that. Maybe you have organized scientific meetings, these kinds of things. Without having this dimension, typically the evaluators in the first round will simply say, stop here.
Okay.
And we know from experience it's very important. Another factor is what they refer to as the funding ID. And this is typically a way to demonstrate that you have already managed to secure funds for your research. Meaning that it's kind of it's attesting to your independence on one hand, And on the other hand, it's another way to assess the excellence of what you've been doing so far.
Yeah. So it's like sort of a stamp.
Exactly. Yeah. Other agencies were funding you already. So,
yeah.
Another factor here is the mentoring of new scientists or leading a research team. I think it's self-explanatory, of course. And then, with regarding this ERC material thing, two more aspects that you should consider has to do with the point in time. The first one is the career-wise, meaning how the research is going to impact your career at this point in time, whether it's too early or maybe too late. What's your competitive status career-wise and things like that. And then another dimension that has to do with the point in time is about the concept of your project. It's kind of a bridge to the next point. It's about the project itself and how it's going to be assessed. And basically, you want to strike the iron while it's hot, meaning to apply something which is current.
Mm-hmm.
When you are still ahead of the competition, and you won't be too late next year, but still you are in a rather mature stage with your idea or concept, and it's the right time to apply. So all in all, these are the factors that we are looking for when looking at the ERC material.
Can I, in Horizon Europe Pillar 2,
yeah,
in the template of the proposal, they sort of guide you. You have
Correct.
descriptions of what they expect to be in different sections. Is it the same in ERC? The things that you just folded out, is that in the template? Is that something that they are asked, so you need to explain this? And here I will be fading out of the first part of this double episode, introducing the ERC funding program. Second part of this double episode will be released next Monday. Here we will continue going through the ERC program with focus on target groups, evaluation regime, and what to avoid when approaching it. That you need to listen to. See you then.